Hi there. Welcome to Cocoon of Cool Collectibles. This is post number one. I want to tell you a little bit about myself and the reason why I posted this. Um, a bit about me. I'm a Gen Xer. I collected sports cards, mostly baseball and basketball and hockey, back when I was a kid, growing up in the 80s. And like most Gen Xers and kids who grew up in the 80s, it was like the height of the junk wax era. And when I was a kid, we used to like play like games with sports cards, like hockey cards. We used to play knockdowns where you would throw them against the wall and try to win your friend's cards. We'd stick them, in the spokes of our bikes just to make weird sounds. We didn't never thought of them as an investment. Um, but we collected them for sure. I collected lots of sets. That's what I did when I was a kid. I would, keep going until I had the set finished. And I remember it being a lot of fun. But early 90s came around and I just became a teenager really and grew out of the hobby really. And didn't really think about it until about, I'm going to say maybe 2 or 3 years ago. My mom, she lives thousands of miles away, but my mom called me and she said, "Yeah, I found all your old cards downstairs in the basement in a closet." She was going through stuff, I guess, and cleaning stuff out. And she said, "Yeah, I found all your old cards. I'll send them up to you." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, cool." And then several days later, I get this big box in the mail with all binders and boxes and shoe boxes, you name it. And, it was my old collection. And I started going through it and having like a really big nostalgia dopamine hit. Like it was really kind of cool to look at this stuff, and a lot of this stuff I hadn't looked at in 35 years at that point. So I started going through it, and it was a lot of fun. And what I found was I started going through it, and then, like most people, I said to myself, well, do I actually have any money here? Like, is any of this worth anything? Or is it all just worthless at this point? Um, because the hobby kind of died, right? And I had no clue what the hobby looked like. At this point, it was probably 2022, maybe. And I had no clue what the hobby looked like. Had no clue about all the inserts, and I had no clue how much the hobby had actually grown in the 30 odd years that I had been away from it. So I went on eBay, some of my cards, and I started just looking them up really just to see ballpark what kind of prices they were worth. And as expected, I found that they weren't worth much because it was all junk wax stuff. But what I did find is as I was going through it and I started thinking about it more, um, well, first of all, what got to me was how cheap some of those boxes were. So as I was going through eBay, and I'll give you an example, I think Upper Deck baseball back in the day, like I'm going to say like 1989, 1990 kind of thing, time frame. A baseball pack back then, I think, was, if I go by memory, like 250 a pack. I think it might have been 199 a pack. It was either 199 or 249. Bottom line, it was a lot of money for a kid back then. Like it was, the days of the 20 cent, tops packs were long gone at that point. And Upper Deck came out, and that first year it was like a premium product. And so I just remember from my youth pumping a lot of money into those cards. And then to see the same box 30 years later selling for, $25 on eBay. Well, obviously I had to buy some because I was like, oh, that's a great deal. So I slowly started buying stuff and I didn't know why. But the more I thought about it and the more I started researching it and the more analysis I did on it, and just, I'm my background, I'm a financial guy. My background is in building economic models and things like that, and largely based on demographics too. So I started playing around just on my own time, playing around with different variables. And what I found was I started doing regression analysis on things like income amongst men, income amongst men in the cohort that I'm in, which would be like 45 to 60. And then also disposable income. And then I also managed to find some data on industry sales and things like that. And what I found was there's a very high positive correlation between men my age and pissing our money away on sports cards. So my theory is, and like I said, I had positive correlations across the board on some of these variables. So my theory is something along the lines of this. After World War II, the baby boomers were all born. So everybody came back from World War II and started popping out kids in the 40s and 50s. Now, prior to, the 50s, people collected cards for sure, but there weren't any really established sets per se. Or companies, I should say. They were largely like cigarette companies and things like that. Like people would put these baseball cards in cigarette packs and things like that to try to entice people to buy it. But it was really, I think, if I'm not mistaken, maybe early 50s, late 40s, early 50s, when you started seeing companies like Bowman and Topps, become established as card companies. And then every year they'd come out with new card sets. And the reason for that, I think, is because there was a demand there for it. You had a bunch of people, the baby boomers, you had tons of children, age 5 to 10, and they all wanted bubblegum. And so the baseball card companies, hockey, basketball, whatever sport, didn't matter. They started putting the gum in there to entice people to buy the cards, and as well they realized that they had something with these collections, because kids like to collect them, and more importantly, they like the bazooka gum that came with it. So the longer story short, I think that during the 50s and 60s, you had a slow but growing industry as those kids, grew up. And then a funny thing happened. They started having kids. So around 1965 is the beginning of the Gen X era. And a bunch of us were born in that Gen X era between 65 and 81. I think 65 and 81, you're considered a Gen Xer. So all those Gen Xers were born. They all grew up in the 70s and 80s, and they got into cards. I'm one of them. And the reason being, number one, as I said, we used them largely as a way to play with our friends. Like we would play knockdowns with them. You'd line them up against the wall, your friend, you take his cards, you take yours, and you just flick cards until you knock them all down, and whoever knocked them all down first would win those cards. So we used them as a means to play socially with each other. But we also started collecting. Like there were people like me who, were legitimate collectors who went after the sets as well. So the hobby boomed. Research I found on it was by 1990, the hobby was approximately $250 to $300 million industry back in 1990, which, big industry. $300 million is not anything to laugh about. But if we compare it to 2025, I think the latest estimate I saw was, I think somebody put it at a $23 billion industry. So we've gone from 300 million to 23 billion in 35 years. That's pretty impressive growth. But getting back to me and why I got out of it, really, I just aged out of it. Like you eventually you hit your teenage years, and sports don't become as important, and lots of things don't become as important because the things that become important are like girls and having fun and all that stuff. So being a teenager, so I grew out of it, and most people my age did as well. And that's why I think you saw a decline in the hobby back in the early 90s. Like I watch some of these YouTube shows and people talk about, well, they overprinted and they people didn't understand. They started coming out with all these parallels and people didn't understand the hobby because there used to be only one or two brands, and all of a sudden the brands started exploding. Well, yeah, that's true. The reason the brands started exploding and the reason the number of companies started exploding, because the demand was there. We were all buying, and we were buying in droves. And that's why, you had your Topses of the world just overproducing because they expected the demand to continue. Now, what they didn't realize at that time was there's a demographic element to this. And there's a demographic element to just about everything. Like any major problem in the world or any major question, you can look at demographics 9 chances out of 10, and it's probably, a factor in it, right? So this was a big time factor, as I mentioned before, with the regression analysis I did. I think it had more to do with people like me just growing out of it and never thinking about it again, quite frankly. Now, the reason I'm bringing this back up is we're all back now. And we're back in a big way, because what happened with me, as I mentioned, I got this big dopamine kick from looking at my old cards. And I suspect that a lot of people are in the same boat as me, because the people who are really fueling the hobby right now that I see are Gen Xers. And again, I've done econometric models on this as well, looking at just like Gen X men. We've got some of the highest disposable incomes of any cohort. I think amongst men, it is the highest among cohort. What that means is we got a lot of money to piss away. And if you are a Gen X man, you're probably not too bright. And we like pissing our money away. So I think a lot of this boom that we've seen in the last 7 years, a lot of people blame it on the pandemic. And I'll buy that. But I think it would have happened regardless of the pandemic. I think that what the numbers are showing me is you've got a bunch of people such as myself who rediscovered the hobby. We're getting up there in years. We're getting closer to retirement, and we're looking for nostalgia. And certainly that's why I'm in it, because I get a big kick out of buying boxes and stuff like that. I get a big kick out of looking at the old stuff on eBay and just, remembering when I was a kid. I get a big kick out of coming across a card and saying, oh, wow, I remember this card when I was a kid. It's kind of fun. So my goal, and the reason I'm making this video, I'd like to retire sometime within the next 5 to 10 years. And that's my plan. And honestly, I'm too young to retire, but I don't want to keep doing what I'm doing, because I think that one thing the pandemic taught a lot of us was work-life balance is very important. And I need to focus more on my work-life balance. Not to sound too morbid or anything, but once you get up, late 40s, definitely up into your 50s, you kind of start to say, well, I'm on the clock now. Like I'm no longer a young person. I'm getting up there in years. So you start to think about what you want to do and what you like doing that makes you happy and gives you joy, because you realize that, you might not have a whole lot of time left. I got lots of friends who, my age and roughly my age, who have kicked off the last several years. It's like my wife said to me, we're getting to the age where people are starting to die. So my goal is to retire sometime, ideally in 5 years, worst case scenario 10. Really depends on, number one, how the next 5 years go, and also on my wife. She has no plans on retiring. She loves her job. She'd do it for free. I'm not as keen on mine as she is with hers. So basically, I say to her, whenever you're ready to retire, let me know, and we'll sell everything off and take off. So I think for me, the goal is 5 to 10 years. And what I've been doing ever since my mom sent up the cards and I started looking into this, I've been periodically buying boxes as auctions come up, and I think that they're a decent deal. So I've literally been buying tons of inventory the last couple of years. I've got closets full of it. I've got a garage full of it, and it's going to be a lot of fun to sell it. My plan is, once I retire, I'm going to open up a card store, an online card shop called Cocoon of Cool Collectibles. And I'll get to the name of where I got that shortly. And yeah, I'm going to just have a card and collectible shop. I'm going to sell off all my collection. And my thought is that'll give me something to do. Because what I observe about retired people is half your battle when you're retired is, finding some purpose every day and figuring out what you're going to do that day. Because when you're retired, well, you're retired, right? You've got lots of time. So my thought is I'll open up my shop. If I make a sale that day, great. I'll go mail it off and do all that stuff. And if I don't, that's cool too. So that is my goal. I've got all sealed boxes at this point. My theory is, well, number one, I'm still new to this hobby too. All the new stuff, like the refractors, the inserts, the autographs, all these, I don't understand any of this stuff. So I've completely avoided that stuff so far. Not to say that I won't take a look at it. I just don't understand it. So what I do understand is sealed product. And my theory is that over time, stuff should appreciate. My junk wax experience notwithstanding. But I will say this about the junk wax era. I think it's coming back, and I think it's coming back in a big way. So yeah, people like me, we love the junk wax. And I'll buy boxes of 1990 Upper Deck baseball or hockey or basketball any day of the week, because that's my era. And if I pull something great out of it, wonderful. If I don't, for me, it's worth the 20 or 30 bucks just to buy the box, to open the packs and, like I said, get that dopamine hit. So I guess my point is, I've been hearing lots of, is the card industry in decline and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure that the card industry is in some way cyclical, but I also think that it's a lot more mature than it was back during Junk Wax 1.0. I think Junk Wax 2.0, where people such as myself are going around looking for boxes from 30, 40 years ago, I think that's about to take off. And you're starting to see it. You're starting to see all these Junk Wax box prices go up. It's something that I've been tracking for the last 6 months or so. So by all means, take a look. I don't know what else to say, and I don't know what's going to come of this channel. I think what I initially thought was it'll be kind of a video blog of my retirement journey into the collectible store that I want to set up when I retire. And hope you like it. Please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. If I get some people watching, great. And if I don't, that's great too. Because like I said, this is just a side project to me to give me something to do for when I retire. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So peace out, everyone, and we'll hit you up next time. So here is the Cocoon of Cool. As you can see, there's a bit of a Star Wars theme here going on. This is my home office, so I spend most of my time in here during the week just at work, doing the whole hybrid thing. So during the pandemic, I decided to really Star Wars it up. And I came up with the name just as a joke to my youngest kid, and I just called it the Cocoon of Cool, and it sort of stuck. So her and I kind of built it together. A lot of shopping on Amazon and AliExpress, as I recall. And this was kind of the inspiration for the name Cocoon of Cool Collectibles. And the idea would be, well, obviously I'm a Star Wars fan, but once I do retire, all these coins and everything, they're all Star Wars themed. I'm going to sell them all off as well. I've got other coins. Shocking. I probably got about, I don't know, 40 grand worth of coins here just out in the open. But if you try to break in here, I will shoot you to death. Don't know what else to tell you guys. I think this is my fortress of solitude. And like I said, it was kind of the inspiration for the name. And the idea will be, once I do retire, yeah, I'm going to sell off everything I can in terms of my sports cards, as well as all my collectible coins. And all the other stuff is just kind of fun. So, hope you liked it. Oh, one thing I did forget to show you. This is one of the closets where I've got inventory. As you can see, it goes right up, basically is right up to the ceiling. So I've got hockey, basketball, baseball, you name it in here. And it's one of my many closets that are completely full. And my wife will be happy to tell you all about it. So here's my garage. You see all these boxes and containers. For the most part, they're all filled with cards. A couple Christmas lights here too, but Halloween decorations. But for the most part, these are all sports cards that I've been acquiring over the last couple of years. It's kind of funny, when we've been living here for about 10 years. And when we moved in, you know, we really didn't have anything, and our neighbors always used to joke, "Oh, you're the garage, you're the house with the clean garage." So not anymore.